body and spirit. Okay, which you will learn about today. We're really excited because with theology of the body, it's important to understand how our body relates to God and that whole picture, and Katrina will explain it so much better. And so without further ado, I'll give you Katrina.
Thank you. It's really a joy to be among you. I love this parish and watched as this church was being built from the very first plans to its dedication. So it's really a particular joy for me to be here among you. Can you hear me back here? Okay, wonderful, great, I'm so happy. So tonight we're going to look at theology of the body for parents. And I want to begin with a story. So sorry, it's a little bit faint up here, but hopefully you can make it out. There was a man and he went into a bar and he ordered a martini. And he very carefully took the olive out of the martini and had a glass jar with him. He opened the glass jar and screwed the lid and carefully put the olive in the glass jar, and then he downed the martini. And then he ordered another one, and he did the same thing. Carefully took the olive out, put it in the glass jar, downed the martini. Well, he did it over and over and over and over again. And when the man was full of martini and the jar was full of olives, he sloshed out of the bar. Well, there was another customer in the bar watching all this. And after the man left, he said to the bartender, "That's the strangest thing I have ever seen." And the bartender said to him, "What's so strange about that? His wife sent him out for a jar of olives." Okay, so hopefully, if your wife sends you out for a jar of olives, that's not the way you're going to get it. But there are many ways to get a jar of olives, aren't there? Many ways. So too, there are many ways to approach parenting. I mean, my goodness, as many books and speakers as there are, all of them have different approaches. So tonight I want to approach it in a very particular way, and that is through St. John Paul II's Theology of the Body. So to do that, I need a male volunteer. Do I have a male volunteer who'd be willing to come up and help me? Just briefly? Would you be so kind? You're kind of close. Wonderful. What's your name? Abdul. So nice to meet you. So, Abdul, I happen to have a knife here. Can you please tell me what's the purpose of this knife?
Cutting stuff.
That's a good answer, right? Okay, so if I wanted to use this knife, could you show me how I might use it? What might I cut?
Kind of this way.
Right, good.
The sharp part is.
Yeah, and then I might cut maybe cheese or tomatoes, apples, butter. Great, so if I wanted to use this knife according to its purpose, I could spread butter, I could cut some apples. Abdul, can I use this knife contrary to its purpose?
No.
What do you think? I think I can.
Well, you could, but...
I could, but it wouldn't be a nice idea because we're in church, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Please give him a round of applause. Okay, I don't know about you, but did you see his face, right? When I turn that knife around, it's a very fascinating example. As Jeremy said, I love to give examples because when we think, when we think of a knife, it's very obvious what the purpose of that knife is and what Abdul is hoping the purpose of that knife is not. But the question I want to ask this evening is, what's the purpose of your body? Right, when you bounded out of bed this morning, okay, maybe you didn't bound out of bed. When you dragged yourself out of bed this morning, my guess is the first question on your mind was not, why did God give you a body? That's not usually the first question we ask ourselves. And yet that's exactly the question that St. John Paul II wanted to answer in something called Theology of the Body. So who here has heard of Theology of the Body? Okay, who's never heard of Theology of the Body? Woohoo! Okay, that's why we're all here. Well, Theology of the Body is this little book here. It's kind of helpful to see that it's really kind of packed. And it consists of 133 audiences, Wednesday audiences, that St. John Paul II gave in Rome from September 1979 to November 1984. So now that's almost 40 years ago that he started giving it, and I find there's still only a very small fraction of the world that has ever heard of Theology of the Body or even knows what it is. And so in these audiences, he wanted to reflect on the meaning and purpose of the body according to Scripture. So it's kind of like one big Scripture study, which is really great because we can always dig deeper into Scripture. So I want to look at this term theology of the body, because it really wasn't very common until John Paul II got a hold of it. So, okay, what's theology? What do we study in theology? Do we study the optics of light? Do we study architecture? What do we study in theology? We study God, right? But if you think about it, we can't go up to heaven and study God directly. We can only study God by how he reveals himself. So that means theology is the study of how God reveals himself. So I want you just to think for a moment, what makes you think of God? So maybe just close your eyes and just ask yourself, okay, what makes me think of God? In other words, when I see it, it makes me think of God. Anyone want to share what popped into their mind or what makes you think of God?
Babies.
I'm sorry, what?
Babies.
Babies, yes. Anything else?
Miracles.
Sorry?
Miracles.
Miracles. That's fabulous. I want to share a couple things that make me think of God. One is Sedona. Anyone here been to Sedona? Okay, it's my favorite place in all of the United States. And when I need to get away and just recharge, that's where I go. Why? Because it's so beautiful. The red rock. And I can just hike my little heart out, and I can just talk to God for 4 or 5 hours on the trail, and we can hash a lot of things out. So it always makes me think of God. And what else? What you also said. A newborn child in particular. Oh my goodness. It's almost like looking on the face of God. How many of you thought about your body when I asked what makes you think of God? Did you think of your body? It's not very common for us when we think of our bodies to make it help us think of God. What about your children? When your children think of God, of their bodies, do you think that makes them think of God? So who here has children in grade school and younger? Okay, how about middle school? Okay, any of you have teenagers, high school? Okay, great. So some of you got the whole spectrum. Anyone have grown children out of the house? Okay, so we're still working hard at raising our families, aren't we? Well, it's just, it's interesting just to stop for a moment and think about what your kids think of their bodies, especially as how it relates to God. So I have a little secret I'd like to share with you. Actually, it's St. John Paul II's secret that has to do with the body and God. Because for him, theology of the body means the body reveals God. That's what theology of the body means. If theology is the way God reveals himself, and John Paul II tacks on body with theology, then that means the body reveals God. So even though we're in church, I want to try a little example, because actually Jesus has been removed from the tabernacle, so we won't be offensive when we do this, or the fact that I'm even here talking, we've got a screen blocking the altar and the beautiful baldacchino. So I'm going to say theology of the body, and I want you to say the body reveals God. Here we go. Theology of the body means?
Body reveals God. The body reveals
I hardly heard
God.
you. Let's try it again. Theology of the body means?
The body reveals
Okay,
God.
one more time, like you're at a football game. Okay, you're cheering for, who are you going to cheer for at the Super Bowl? Okay, whoever it is, let me hear it. Theology of the body means?
The body reveals God.
Fabulous. This is the first thing we need to teach our kids. I mean, even if they're 6 or 7 years old, do you think they can learn that? Of course they can. Theology of the body means?
The body reveals God.
So now every time you hear theology of the body, this is what I hope will pop into your mind. The body reveals God. So I have some mountains here, and if I cover them up, can you still see them? How? Exactly, in the reflection. You see, we can't see God directly, can we? Right? We can't go up to heaven and study him. We can't put him under a microscope, but we can see him in each other. You see, that's your body. This is why God gifted you, gave you a body, is so that your body can reflect God. So your body can reveal God. So I want to look for a moment at the evolution of skyscrapers. Okay, a little bit of an odd thing to do in a talk on theology of the body. I love this little thing. So first of all, it's showing how skyscrapers have grown in height. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, the Empire State Building was one of the tallest buildings in the world. But now look at how much shorter it is, and all these other buildings, and this one over here in Dubai that's still growing, so that it's the tallest building in the world. But here's what I love about this, is that notice how Godzilla has also had to grow in his movies, right? This is how tall Godzilla originally was. But as the buildings got bigger, he had to get bigger too. So what's my point? For these really tall skyscrapers, how deep does the foundation have to be? Really deep. I mean, I can't even imagine how deep the foundation is of that huge skyscraper in Dubai. But it has to be really deep in order to support this massive structure. So what's the purpose of a foundation? Right? It's to keep it stable. It's to keep it so that if something happens, earthquake or strong winds or anything like that, it's not going to rock, it's not going to tumble, it's not going to crumble. That's the purpose of the foundation. As human persons, we also need a foundation. I don't know if you've ever thought about it. Think about how much greater you are and your children as a human person than any of those skyscrapers. You are more majestic. You are in some sense taller than any of them. So how deep does your foundation need to be on which to build your identity? In other words, to answer the question, who am I? Because that's what we're talking about when we're talking about human identity, answering, who am I? So I think it's kind of interesting to just reflect for a moment on how different people might answer, who am I? What the foundation of their identity is. Anyone know who that is?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. Okay, what do you think the foundation of his identity might be? Playing football, isn't it? And not just playing football, it's winning. And not just winning, it's winning Super Bowls. It's an interesting foundation for an identity, isn't it? We're going to see in a couple weeks, aren't we? What happens to that foundation for him? What about the founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg? What do you think is the foundation of his identity? I'm the founder of Facebook. I am a multi-millionaire. I'm an entrepreneur. My guess is these are part of the foundation of his identity, of how he answers, who am I? President Trump. Okay, there's a rather interesting personality, isn't it? It'd be fascinating to know how he answers, who am I? At least for right now, I'm president of the greatest country in the world. That's probably how he might answer it. How about Mother Teresa? Does she have a foundation to her identity? What do you think it might be? Jesus Christ. And people so respected and admired her for it because you could see it in her action, in the way she loved the poor. So all these people, all of us, we all have some type of foundation to our identity, some way in which we answer the question, who am I? So I just want you to ask yourself for a moment, what's the foundation of your identity? We went around and asked each of you, okay, so who are you? How would you answer that question? What's the foundation that you're building your life on? In addition, how would your kids answer, who am I? I've been working with a group of parents, small group of parents for the last 6 months. This is one of the things that we've been working on. And it was something really they hadn't thought deeply about. You know, we try to help our kids to be good students and good athletes and to mind their manners, but do we really think about the most foundational reality of their life is how they think in their minds and of themselves, how they answer, who am I? This is such an important question because our culture is helping them answer it. And as we know, our culture is more and more saturating their lives because of electronic devices and social media. So they're being exposed more and more and being told who they are. Can someone give me an example? What might our modern culture tell your kids is the foundation of their identity? Who are they? Yes?
The clothes they wear.
The clothes they wear. Excellent. All the different brand names, right? I mean, even we as adults, what purse are you carrying? Right? What else might be the foundation of their identity according to our culture?
How they act.
Who was here speaking this last weekend? Leah Darrow. She talked to the kids about how flawless beauty, not just beauty, but flawless beauty, is being shoved down the throats of our girls, that they've got to look perfect. We've got a big problem with sexting, right? With sending inappropriate photos. Because if you do that, hey, what'll happen?